Hey everyone, welcome to this session on the Global Economy Risk Assessment Report, GERA for short, Process and Perspectives. I'm your host, Yuri Shelsford, ex-economic lecturer and founder of the online economics outlet, Money and Macromedia. And today I'm joined by a whole host of people, Tamta Supramatse, Vasgen Bogosian. Tamta, maybe you can kick this all off. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about sort of the objectives of this Global Economy Risk Assessment Report?
So, hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today and to discuss with you about a very important initiative we have in this direction. So, the Global Forecasting School is providing this Global Economic Risk Assessment Report, and here we have the initiative to make it as an MBG blog. So I will briefly overview what is Global Economic Risk Assessment Report and what is the mission to publish this as an MBG blog. So the first I want to start with the overview of the current macroeconomic situation around the world. So it's quite uncertain and everything is very unstable right now around the world. And so that we are living in a world whenever something is settling down, we see that there's something unexpected is happening. And it's not the news, it starts back to the COVID-19 and it was followed by the different shocks like the geopolitical tension and the commodity prices volatility. And right now we are standing in a situation whenever this tariff policy and its implication is changing almost every evening. And so in this situation, it's quite important to have very comprehensive analysis what are the risks right now and what implication it could have on the global economy and the general equilibrium in the economy. So this global risk assessment report, this JURA report, is very comprehensive and it states all the items that the policymakers around the world needs and what could be this implication of this uncertainty. And so it became quite important. So this global forecasting school is providing these JIRA reports for years, but right now the significance of this report is increasing. Because as I already mentioned, every evening the situation is changing, and whenever you want to read the comprehensive analysis, there is a lot of the pieces on the website, and there is like the separated pieces how this tariff policy will affect the different areas of the economy. And this assessment report is quite good in this direction because it summarizes very nicely this whole package of this risk assessment. And so I want to compliment this global forecasting school for providing this kind of this quality report, because we always mention that global forecasting school that we have the dynamic learning environment. And this dynamic learning environment happens in reality right now. Do you see the trends, what's going on globally right now? Is this the same as we have at the global forecasting school? So I have the feeling that in the world right now is happening the something. Doug Laxton was preparing us for this situation. And so it's every evening we should change our narratives and our analysis. And so this product is like the representation of the quite comprehensive economic analysis. And so this initiative to have it as an MBG blog also helps not only us, not only like the policymakers at the National Bank of Georgia and the Central Bank of Armenia, but also it will be helpful for others as well, because as I already mentioned, so the analysis, what could be the implications, is like the very separated and there is a different pieces. And whenever it wants to, and policymakers, when they want to just read one pager or like the several pages and have the comprehensive idea what could be like the impact of different shocks, they can read from this Jura report, and I think that it will become the very popular. And so not only the Central Bank of Armenia or the National Bank of Georgia, but also the other countries and the representatives of other central banks, they will find it also very useful. And so I once again I want to compliment student for the global forecasting school, because this is like the product what we need, and this is like the representation what could like the best of the best economics could provide. And so they keep on. We will start to publish it, and it will be updated regularly as the situation is changing quite frequently.
Yeah, and Tamta, what exactly sort of are the chapters of this report? What's in it? Like, can you give us an overview?
So there is like the standardized, and there is a summary of the major economists. Like there is a summary of the U.S. economy, Euro economy, Russia, and the China.
Mm.
And so there is some key charts with the narratives, and which provides like the overview of what is U.S. policy and what could be like the potential development and what implication should it have. For example, like now the U.S. policy and tariff policy and its implication is important. And so in this report, you can find what could be the potential impact of this tariff policy on the inflation, on the Fed funds rate, and how it could affect the asset prices, how it could affect the real economy. And it summarizes all of this. So these key economists are taken because this Euro area and US, China, and the Russia. So it's a majority part of the world economy, and it represents all of the key economies, and that's why they are chosen to observe and to monitor. So once again, I want to highlight that this Jura report is not like the separated dots, which provides this separated analysis, but it summarizes the idea, all the narratives of key economies.
Yeah, so a key overview to get for any central banker in a small country that just needs to like know, oh, this is the state of the world economy.
Yeah. For example, like the policymakers, central bank governors, and the management can read these reports in the 20 minutes, and they do know what's happening right now in the world and what are the implications. And so this is the very high value of these Jura reports. So it is like the easily readable, but it's like the very rich in terms of the economic analysis, because it's not like the dots. So it's like the whole picture of this economy.
Yeah, that sounds super interesting, and yeah, I think it's high time to get maybe into that a little bit. So I've been told that Vasken has been working, amongst all of you, of course, but on this report. But Vasken, can you maybe start with giving us a little bit of an overview of what's in there? So what is going on in the global economy? What are the risks that we should be watching out for?
Yeah, thanks, Yuri, for this very interesting discussion. Thanks, Tamta, for some very important points that she highlighted. But before turning directly to the report and my assessment of the global economy, the risks and beyond, let me a bit go into the importance of this kind of reports, of this Jira report in our FPAS Mark II framework, because in some sense it gains I would say, some crucial role now in our analysis, in our forecasting policy analysis framework. I would even say that this kind of report or this kind of analysis gets some, I would say, central role in our framework. Why? because the FPAS Mark II, or this risk management, the prudent risk management approach. Let me draw some parallels between the FPAS Mark I and FPAS Mark II. So what we basically do under this FPAS Mark II framework, so we have a couple of major or central scenarios rather than having only one baseline there. And what we actually do, we do the external sector and domestic economy analysis, not only to understand where the economy is now. This is also the case for the global economy, but also to reveal the major risks that may stem from this uncertainty and so on. So how this kind of reports also helps us, it is that they reveal the possible risks or possible scenarios which we want to control or which we want to be well prepared against. So this is, I would say, this is also why this kind of report is very, very crucial under our FPAS Mark II framework. The next thing I also want to highlight here is that, as Tamta also fairly mentioned, and I'm also hopeful that one day we will also run a blog in our CBA website, and we will have another this kind of stuff there. So I think that's really gonna be very useful to all of us, and especially to all the guys under the training and so on. So as Tamta already fairly mentioned, the uncertainty is unusually high nowadays globally, and it mainly stems from the US, but there are lots of directions of uncertainties and so on. But how we can fight that uncertainty in these kind of small open economies like Armenia and Georgia? I mean, there is no way to fight this uncertainty. The only way to be prepared for this kind of events, and the only thing I think that is very meaningful, is to invest a lot into our human capital. So to be very well prepared. If, for example, to exaggerating a bit, I would say that we have to prepare warriors to fight against this kind of waves and or storms or something like that. So that's why we have to really invest a lot into our human capital to be able to manage or control all these kind of risks stemming from the global economy. The next thing I want to, then maybe I can go directly to this JIRA report from my perspective. So really, yeah, the uncertainty is really, really very high nowadays. So we might say that Trump is the main guy that was guilty for that uncertainty. So he created really a lot. So this is not only the fiscal policy, so that is a major source of uncertainty. I mean, the U.S. fiscal policy and around the fiscal policy also, there are lots of minor topics. For example, the taxes, how the taxes will be collected, whether some tax exemptions will be in place for another 10 years and so on. This is the DOGE, whether how much it is going to be effective and so on. On the other side, this is the expenditure side, how much they are going to expand to the economy. So generally, whether we will see some consolidation in their fiscal policy or not, or if we recap, so what is going to be the debt trajectory for the United States? So that may have very, very important implications also for the long-term interest rates, whether the markets will assess or there are some risks that markets are not currently pricing, for example, if the neutral rate is higher, and so on. So the other major sources, of course, it is the trade policy of the US, or the tariff policy, which reshapes the global economic landscape, I would say, and nowadays, and if it affects absolutely everybody, like any country in the map that you can see. The other policy that is also very, very important nowadays is the migration policy in the United States. With a tighter migration policy, I would say we may have some more inflationary effects for the United States, as you know, as the labor market is still very tight in the United States. So recapping the United States, I would say there are really lots of risks, up and down risks, as we call them, case A and case B type of risks. But they are mainly in these three directions that I already mentioned. But how this risk may impact little countries, like small countries like Armenia and Georgia. I think, I think that the direct impact on the Armenia, of course, will be very, very low. As we are not, our trade with the US is very, very small. This is only like 1 or 1.5% of our overall exports that goes to US. So the US has only a very slight share in our exports. Not even talking about the GDP. The share in GDP is even much lower, but the indirect impacts may be really huge on Armenia, and I think this is also the case for Georgia. So if the uncertainty stays very, very high, and it also impacts on these trade wars, like impact the global trade and the global supply chains on one hand, so we will have some kind of negative demand shock from that side stemming from the global economy. But on the other hand, we will also have maybe some spike in the imported prices also if these trade wars really escalate further. So we will have this some kind of supply chain disruptions that we will import. So I would say that that's a scenario that we might really be concerned about. But for example, if these trade wars, if these trade tensions don't escalate really further, maybe even we will in some sense benefit from that, because for example, if the China is out of the US market, so it will start to reroute its export to to other countries, maybe to some emerging markets and so on. And maybe we are going to import some lower prices from China and maybe these kind of and other countries. So the Chinese renminbi is also depreciated a bit, like the transportation costs also declined. So there are also different channels that may have some deflationary impacts on the Armenian economy. So different scenarios may have absolutely different implications for our economy. But maybe the next or maybe one of the most important risks or scenarios that may stem from the global economy is that how this Russian-Ukrainian war may resolve. So this is another very important source of uncertainty for us, whether we are very close to the end of the war or we are very optimistic on that, and the things may get even worse and so on. But for example, if we imagine that the war is really going to end, there are also lots of possible scenarios there, how it's going to be ended, and whether the sanctions on Russia are going to be canceled, or the war is just going to be ended, but the sanctions will still stay there. So these different scenarios also may imply absolutely different scenarios for the small open economies around this region, I may say for Armenia and Georgia, because both of our countries also had, I would say, the same impact from this Russian-Ukrainian war and so on. So this is I would say the main risk map
Yeah.
stemming from the global economy.
And you've worked with students on this report, right? Like they have constructed it essentially. How did that work?
Yeah, I think that works really well. I would say one of the most important points is that that the students are also on pulse of everything. So what's happening in the world? So they are in the epicenter in some sense of everything. So they have to work on US, on EU, on China, I don't know, Russia, commodity markets and so on. So they have to be aware of everything. And when you really understand what's going on every part of the world, so you're better prepared and you work really much more effectively also on your domestic economy and so on.